What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's another series that's going to run for 38 game weeks. Simply put, who is the best FPL captain? And even in weeks like this one, when Liverpool playing Norwich, we're still going to talk about it like we will for the next 37 weeks. So if you enjoy this series, give it a like, hit that subscribe button, getting closer and closer to 200k now. Let's quickly talk about Fanteam, who have supported me over the last couple of seasons. So just before we get into the video, let's talk about Fanteam, right? If you haven't already signed up and played it, think of it as FPL, but with a lot of money at stake, right? So there's £1 million worth of guaranteed prizes for this game. First place is going to get 200 grand, and then it pays all the way down to 5,000th place, which is £40, right? Now, it is 20 quid to enter. It is 18 plus, and it is gambling, so you need to be aware of that. But the great thing is, the reason I like it and why I played it last year and the year before, is you can kind of just apply your FPL knowledge over to this game. It works very similarly. There's some rule changes, like shots on target, for example, get you points. Playing for 90 minutes gets you an extra point as well. So players like Fernandes, for example, are really key to games like this. But most of the player prices are either similar or a little bit cheaper. So let me just show you, right? This is basically the team that I put out. So my team selection video I did a couple of days ago, this is pretty much the identical team. So really, if I don't want to, I don't have to give this any more thought than that. Just put that team in there. Now, there are some price differences. So Mahrez is a little bit cheaper, for example, but Rafinha's $1 million more, and Luke Shaw's also 0.5 more. So the only real sacrifice I've had to make is putting Harry Maguire, which I'm not too worried about at all, instead of Luke Shaw. The rest of the team is exactly the same. So if I don't want to think about it, I can just use that team, but there are some subtle differences which might make you rethink. So it's kind of nice to have two different teams because it gives something a little bit more, a bit more excitement on the weekend and stuff like that. So for example, right, in midfield, if I stop looking for £4 million players, you got the likes of Mane is 10 million instead of 12 like he is in FPL. Son is also 9.5 million. So for this, although this is just my team selection team passed over to Fanteam, I probably would give it a bit more thought and try and figure out how to get Son and maybe even Mane in the team as well, and possibly cheapen my defence. So if you want to give it a go, link in the description, get signed up now and play it alongside FPL. So sometimes we're going to talk about captain and there's going to be no standout option, or there's going to be lots of really good options. This week there kind of is a few different good options, but realistically Liverpool versus Norwich is where we're looking, right? I think the season before last, when Norwich were in the league, I think Liverpool put 4 past them. They put 4 past Leeds as well last year on the opening day, playing a newly promoted team, and this year they're playing Norwich again. Right, so this is the fixture to target. I think there are a few others like Man United versus Leeds, West Ham versus Newcastle, but they're not as good as Liverpool, so we don't need to beat around the bush. Salah is the best captain, but I think on these videos it's important to kind of remember that not everyone wants to go for the obvious choice. Some people want to go a little bit differential. I do think this week is where we will probably see Jota start. Now, we're talking about captaincy for 1 week here. We're not necessarily talking strategy for getting players in your team and your squads and keeping them long term. Like for me, Jota's is just too much of a minute's risk. For other people, they don't care about that. They're happy to get like kind of 2 starts in every 3 games and then hope that he comes off the bench in the other one. But I do think if you wanted to go a little bit different, there is nothing wrong with Mane or Jota. The one thing that Salah has above any of them is penalties. There are rumours that Milner's going to start, but I'm not convinced that Milner's going to take a penalty if he's on the pitch at the same time as Salah. It's been a long time since that happened, right? So I think Salah will probably keep them. So that is a big plus. But if there was no penalties in this game, you look at the numbers there. They are for last season, expected goals, expected assists, and then expected goal involvement, which is basically the other 2 added up together. They're all really close together, because if you're an attacker in Liverpool's team and you're not Shaqiri, you're scoring quite a few goals, you're getting quite a few assists. The one thing I really like is Jota's goal threat is higher than the rest when he plays, so we could see him play through the middle. So genuinely, if you had Mane or Jota and you're someone that wants to do things a little bit different without going so far where it's just a really crazy pick, then you could go for Mane or Jota against Norwich. I'm not really seeing anything from what I've read about Norwich in pre-season or from last season that makes me think they're going to come up and be defensively solid. I'm sure they might be a little bit better than last time they came up, but they're going to want to play, and I think that really plays into Liverpool's hands. So any of these guys are going to have a field day, right? We don't need to talk about it much longer. You got any of these 3, I think they're all good captains. I will say I think Jota's minutes are probably the least favourable, right? I think Salah and Mane will probably stay on the pitch for the longest, even even if they all start. And Salah is the standout. But if you wanted to go a little bit different, either of the other two are good. So I think Man United have to be in the conversation because obviously Bruno Fernandes, the top scorer last year. They're also playing Leeds, whose defence was just not good last year, right? I had a bit of a soft spot for Leeds from an FPL point of view. They were really good to own. Dallas, Bamford, Rafinha, etc. But ultimately, they did concede quite a few goals, especially to big teams. Now, there was a kind of conversation in the community, especially early on in pre-season. I don't think Leeds' defence has been talked about that much recently, about how they kind of tightened up towards the end of the season. I don't tend to look specifically at certain stages of the season. You can always apply context to stats, like if they were missing a defender, or if they changed shape, changed formation, changed tactics. But I'm not sure they did enough that makes me think they're still not going to be a poor defence this season. Like, their stats were one of the worst in the league. Now, in some games, they did control it. Like, if it was like a Burnley or something like that, they did control the games quite well. They didn't necessarily concede as many goals. But against the likes of Man United, the Liverpools and stuff like that, they did concede quite a few. I will caveat that by saying the last couple of games against Man United and Man City, they only conceded one goal between them, right? So they drew 0-0 with Man United, and they lost. They beat Man City 2-1. So they did quite well. But I think ultimately you have to back Man United in this game in normal circumstances. I think the issue maybe for this season, for this particular game week, right? I'm not saying later on in the season. Fernandes has only had one game. Martial himself has said that he's not necessarily up to full fitness. Greenwood's had a really good pre-season, by the way. He's played minutes in most of the games that Man United have had, and a pretty decent chunk as well. But Sancho's probably not going to be ready. Varane hasn't even been announced yet. Pogba will probably play. Rashford's out as well. Cavani's not going to start. So they are missing some key players. So if Leeds kind of go all out and kind of attack and leave space in behind, I still think Man United are looking good with Greenwood, with Martial and Fernandes helping out on the counter as well. If they don't, it could be a bit of a struggle maybe to break them down. Like, Cavani is such a good runner, he's so intelligent that he's going to get into great positions to receive the ball from Fernandes, etc. But in this case, he's not going to be there. So I would probably be bigger on Man United if they'd had they have had a good pre-season as a team, but on an individual basis, it's not quite there. So like Martial, he's on there because there's just not too many attackers to choose from. He probably is going to start up front, but I would be worried about how many minutes he gets. You can see from the numbers, no, good choice. Greenwood also really improved. His goal threat was decent last year, and I think he's got a good chance of getting to 90 minutes, and that is important, especially at the start of the season. How often that happens later on, I don't know, but again, we're talking about 1 week. So if you want to go for a bit of a punt, Martial, Greenwood, but I think we still have to go for Fernandes. I know people are trying to play down how good he was last year and that he might regress, there might be less penalties, but I just think there's going to be space for him to get on the ball, to push forward against Leeds, and he's a great captaincy option. Is he a great captaincy option versus Salah and Mane? I don't think so. But again, if you want to target this fixture, if you maybe just don't want to go for Liverpool players, Fernandes is probably number 2 on my list this week. So I am recording this on Thursday, right? So I know that Chelsea have won the Super Cup. I created the graphics and chose this fixture actually on Wednesday, right? Because I do think it's a good fixture against Palace. I know like Patrick Vieira is there. There's a bit of a buzz about him. Will they be more attacking? I just think last season their defence was so bad. And yes, they've made some good transfers, but I think it's going to take some time for that to kind of work. We don't know how Vieira is going to get them playing. I think Palace are potentially there for the taking by Chelsea. And again, Chelsea players, they don't feature in my team going forward because I just don't think the fixtures are good enough. But if we're talking about Game Week 1 captain, for someone that's got Chelsea players in their team, I genuinely think it's a good option. The problem now comes is they've played the Super Cup and some players have played like 120 minutes. Havertz, for example, he's also missed the penalty, I think, as well. So he's just played 120 minutes. So is he now going to get like a 90 minutes against Crystal Palace? Lukaku's still not officially signed. I don't think he's going to be there. Timo Werner's played as well. I assume that Alonso's going to start that Palace game. But again, he played in the Super Cup. Chilwell's still nowhere to be seen. So the one thing that kind of puts me off Chelsea is they're almost like an unknown. What formation are they going to play? Which kind of personnel are going to line up after playing such a, not necessarily a grueling match, but 120 minutes is not great, right? A few days before the season starts. So they've played that on Wednesday, and then they've got to play this weekend. Let me just double check when the game is. It's on Saturday, I think. Yeah, Saturday at 3 o'clock. So that kind of puts me off a little bit now for anyone that's considering them. But if we're looking at the numbers again, Timo Werner did get into the right places, right? So I did that video with Chris Sutton yesterday. He had him as captain. I don't think that's as crazy as it looks. I really don't, right? And that's not just saying it because he was on. The numbers are there. He gets into the right places. He cannot go another season doing what he did last year. At some point, he is going to start converting these tap-ins, these positions he gets into. He's going to have a monster score. So I actually don't mind Werner as a captain. It is definitely a punt, right? You are massively punting against the crowd. We know everybody's going to go for Salah. They're going to go for Fernandes. They're not going for Timo Werner, but he is a punt. Alonso is fun. Right, he can be fun. We know he's attacking, and Chelsea do keep clean sheets. So if he does start that game, I mean, that expected goal involvement last year, 0.27, there's some midfielders that don't even hit that, right? So for a defender that's also probably going to get a clean sheet, possibly some bonus points, that's really good. We're talking about fun picks now. We're not talking about, possibly going for a consistent or steady a lot of points for your rank. We're talking about an explosive player. And then I suppose Havertz is the one because he's probably going to play number 9, but I do worry about his minutes now. So Chelsea was someone that I was quite excited about for Captaincy for Game Week 1, but that Super Cup game and the fact that some of their players haven't even come back from like pre-season properly yet, like Chilwell, Reece James, it kind of would put me off probably at this point. Okay, so let's look at the rest of the fixtures just to pick out a few different captaincies. Again, for people that want to do something a little bit different, Arsenal versus Brentford has to be one, right? Brentford newly promoted. I think sometimes with newly promoted teams, they're actually quite hard to read because Premier League teams maybe haven't quite worked them out yet. They're not used to the players, the systems and stuff like that. And also Brentford are going to be in front of the fans. First home game of the Premier League season. That's going to be huge. They're going to be right up for it. And I guess enthusiastic sounds quite patronising, but I don't know. I just think they're going to be ready to go against Arsenal. So I don't know how difficult they're going to make it. But the likes of Aubameyang and possibly Pepe outside captaincy options, if we know that they're definitely starting. Again, we're not talking about straight up obvious choices here, right? So Pepe and Aubameyang. I've also already talked about Chelsea. Everton I would just avoid. I just think Calvert-Lewin's not necessarily going to start. We're still waiting for press conference news about that. I don't really know who else you would go for there anyway. Leicester versus Wolves is really interesting. I think Barnes and Vardy could genuinely be options there because I think we've got to not necessarily forget about how Wolves have been defensively in the past, but I'm just not expecting them to be anywhere near as good as they have been. Maybe we'll be proved wrong, but I think that's a nice fixture. So if you've got like a Vardy, you're already going a bit different, you want to go a little bit further, that could be the one. Same with Aston Villa, Danny Ings could be an option there as well. I would probably avoid Spurs versus Man City completely. Could Son score? Yes, he could. Could Mahrez score? Yes, he could. But that could be a tight game, right? We just don't know how that's going to play out. I'm sure Man City will probably win it, but I can't see them scoring 4, 5, 6 goals, maybe even like 3. I just think it'll be 1 or 2 that they'll score at the most. We'll see. It depends how many players they've got back and how well they kind of get stuck into it. Because obviously, Mahrez has played loads of pre-season minutes, but outside of that, there's not too many of their attackers that have had like a Gundogan, I suppose, as well, that have had like a really good pre-season. Jack Grealish is only just there. De Bruyne was still waiting to find out if he's injured. Foden is definitely out, so I'd probably avoid that. And the other one is Antonio versus Newcastle. Again, genuine captaincy option, I think, against them. We're talking about betting against the crowd again, right? We know it's going to be Liverpool. We know maybe a few going on Fernandes. But if we're talking about outside the box thinking, Antonio's got to be there. But let me know if there's anyone else. That is it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below who you are captaining. Who is the best captain? Is it Salah, or are you going to go a little bit different for Game Week 1? Maybe it's Bruno Fernandes. It's not that much different. He was brilliant last year, the top scorer, and Leeds conceded a lot of goals. So let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already signed up to Fanteam as well, there's links to that in the description below. Get signed up ahead of the deadline tomorrow. Get your teams locked in. Like I said, it's quite easy just to apply your FPL knowledge over there. You do need to be 18 or over. It is gambling. There's links to begambleaware.org in the description below. And lastly, thank you to everybody that signed up on Patreon. We've got a few new recruits for this video. So we've got Lindsley RW, Amrit Powell S, The Owl, and the Jedi Barber. That's what they showed up as. If you want your names on there, just give me a message and we can figure that out as well. But thank you to everyone that signed up. There's a mini league for August, then there'll be a mini league for every single month of the season with prizes for that. There's Slack access. We'll do team news, Q&As every week as well. Loads of stuff. Links for that in the description below. I'll leave it there. I've got another video later on today that'll be out at 7 p.m. Hopefully, anyway. I should be talking to Ben Foster, aka the Cycling GK. So I'm going to get some questions to him. We're going to talk about FPL. Going to go through his team. Hopefully, I can give him some tips. There's a few players he released on his channel yesterday I'm thinking could be slightly different. So hopefully be talking to him this afternoon, then hopefully it'll be out this evening, so keep an eye out for that. But either way, there'll be more content tomorrow, deadline streams as well, so look forward to that. I just need to decide how many hours before to do it, but I'm waffling now. I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. We're back next week for the Captaincy. See you soon.